Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our workshop that's Presenting to Win by Jez Ray. Just before we start, Lisa, can I request you to show the first of the two videos again, please? Thank you.
Doing business with the London Borough of Hounslow, a guide for suppliers. This video is an introduction to what the London Borough of Hounslow buys and where to find opportunities to bid for contracts. The London Borough of Hounslow spends around £170 million per annum on services, supplies and works. The largest categories of expenditure are in construction and social care, but a wide range of other categories too. For example, ICT, transport, training, facilities management, PPE, agency staff, utilities, and telecoms, to name but a few. If the council provide it, we need to buy for it. 87% of current council suppliers are SMEs, and contract sizes range from £5,000 to £250 million. So there is work for everyone, from micro organisations to multinational corporations. Where to find contract opportunities? All requests for quotation and tenders published by the London Borough of Hounslow are placed onto the London Tenders portal. This can be found at londontenders.org. The London Tenders portal is an e-tendering system built specifically for the public sector and is used by many public sector organisations across the country. The system gives you the ability to search for opportunities nationally. It is free for suppliers to register and use. To find out about upcoming opportunities, please contact procurement on procurement@hounslow.gov.uk.
Thank you, Lisa. And now over to the main man, and over to you, Jez. Thank you.
It's 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes before potentially the biggest moment of your business's life. You've been preparing for this for ages. It's the chance to present. You've maybe got on the short list for a tender, for a bit of work, and you have to do a presentation. And you know what the world is like now? Every communication, virtually every communication is virtual. It's just so efficient for B2B communications. It's likely to be the future of B2B communications. But back to you. It's now 1.5 minutes to go before you have to present online, virtually, to that panel, to that prospect, to that contact, for the client, for the one who's going to make the selection on whether you are going to be given that contract. How do you feel at this moment? Chances are you're feeling a bit nervous and a bit ready to go, and your focus is, of course, on yourself and all that work that you have done for probably weeks, maybe even months, making sure that in Dragon's Den style, you know your figures inside out. But here's another angle to think of. Every time you appear on screen in a presentation to do with your business, you are effectively on stage. You are delivering a performance. So 3 fundamental questions to ask of yourself at this point. How do you show up on screen? What's the experience for your client, your prospect, for the panel on the other side of the screen? And for heaven's sake, why does this even matter? I mean, you're experienced business people. You've been delivering presentations in one form or another, probably for years. You've been going to meetings for years. You know how to talk to people. It's in your DNA. You're professionals at it already. But here we're in a different world. We're in the world of virtual delivery. So let's answer that last question. Why does it even matter? Think of your daily lives, of your clients' daily lives. You're cocooned in a slick, professional transmedia bubble almost every moment of every day. You're surrounded by advertising on the TV, on your phone, on your tablet. It just hits you all the time. Are you like me here? Put yes in the chat box if you are someone who just prefers to not actually watch the adverts on TV, that you, if possible, you record something so that you can watch it later and skip by the adverts. Are you one of those people? Just chuck in yes, because that's a way that we can avoid these things ourselves. But we cannot avoid what's happening in the world of communications around us. That slickness, that professionalism is there all the time. What that means, yes, a watch replay. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Because we've had enough, haven't we? We've had adverts. I go back many years to some adverts that make you cringe, but we try and avoid them if we can. But in the world of communications that we're in, what we cannot avoid is that slickness and that professionalism, and the yeses are coming in. Thank you. The slickness and that professionalism is surrounding us 24/7. Not only is it surrounding us, it is surrounding the contacts that we are talking to. So everyone that you see the other side of the screen and who sees you are already in a world where the expectation is pretty high, where there's an expectation of professionalism. Now, you're a professional and you're accustomed to setting high standards with meetings in the room. It's what you do, it's automatic for you. But now we're communicating virtually. So what we're going to do in this session is cover some basic fundamental skills that can help make our presentation more professional. Anything that we can do to lift our professionalism in the eyes of the people that we're communicating with is going to help. So I'd ask you to join with me in a touch of humor here and there and a bit of fun, but let's look at some skills that you can take away from today and put in place immediately to improve your professionalism. And we'll make use of the chat box, we'll make use of polls, and let's enjoy this as well as taking away something professional from it. Let's start with a poll to set the scene. So I'm going to put up a poll to ask you some questions about how you think about presenting virtually. So here is poll number 1. When you're presenting virtually, where's your audience? A dumb question? Okay, maybe it appears so at first, but I'll explain why in a moment. So 3 answers for you here, and please put your answers down. Yeah, well, I can't be sure. They might be working from home. They might be in the kitchen. At the moment when I contact them, they might have gone off and made themselves a cup of coffee, and they've just got their earpiece in, and they're just pretending to be on the screen. Or I rely on the meeting organizer to tell me a bit about the audience. Or I know exactly where my audience is every single second of that presentation. And we'll let these come in, just another 1 or 2 to come in, and then I'll show you the results. So just coming in now, we're nearly there, enough to give us the answer for today. Let me share the results of that poll. So the bulk of people answered, yeah, can't be sure. They may be working from home or somewhere, in the office or somewhere where I don't know. And that's a logical answer, isn't it? I agree, that is an absolutely logical answer. Nobody's relying on the meeting organizer. So sorry, Lisa, you're out of this one. But a couple of people actually said, I know exactly where my audience is. And I'm hoping that you've said that because you know that where your audience is whenever you're presenting virtually is here. There is only one place where your audience resides when you are delivering virtually, and it's the camera. It's that Gorgon eye that sits on top of the looking glass. Let's come to why that's so important. You're professionals. You're in roles where meeting the client is crucial to win the business, to win the contract. You understand the importance of engaging visually. Of course you do. That's what we do as human beings. We share things visually. We meet people, we look at them in the eye. But what happens, the risk of what happens when we're on screen is that there's something missing. You're halfway through the presentation or just in the conversation, and you just have that sense that there's a bit of disengagement. Why is that? Let's take it outside of presentations for the moment and put it in a world where you've been for a walk with your family or your friends, which we're allowed to do now, thank heavens. But you've been for a walk and someone takes out their phone and does a family snap. Let's take a picture of this happy group. When the photo gets sent round afterwards, you have a look at the image, and again, there is something missing. There's a sense of disengagement apart from the one person who was remembered either by accident or maybe by design to actually look at the camera on that phone, which of course is a tiny little dot at the edge rather than the screen. That is the risk for us when we're on screen presenting virtually. What we want to do, what you want to do, what I want to do, if I could see you all on screen, was to get the feedback. So if you're on a Teams call or a Zoom call where everyone's in front of you, what we do as human beings is this. So I would be looking at the screen and I'd be looking for the engagement from the people who are there. I want to know that they've actually listened, that they're responding, that maybe there's nods or the occasional grin. As a human being, I want that response because that's what we do as humans. But already I have lost that engagement with you. Even in those few seconds, I have dropped away from screen and I've now become the person that's looking away and not getting the human engagement. Because if you were in the room with people, you would actually make absolutely certain that where they were is looking at you and you're looking at their eyes, you're looking at the face, you're looking at the expressions, because we want to engage with people as human beings. Fundamental tip number one, when we're presenting virtually, is remember where the audience is. Your audience is on screen. Your audience for you to communicate with is where the camera is. So looking at the camera is absolutely vital. Now, I can hear you saying already, Jez, I can't spend 100% of my time looking at the camera. Looking at that tiny dot. I need to look at some faces. Of course you do. Of course I do. We all want the reaction. We all want to know what people are doing. So here's a couple of practical tips for you. In terms of time spent on camera, why not use a ratio that you're probably already familiar with? The 80-20 rule. Businesses get 80% of their profits and 20% of their clients. It's an unwritten rule. I'm told, gentlemen in the audience, that apparently we only use 20% of what's in our wardrobes at any one time, and the other 80% sits there hidden. In lockdown, probably down to 10. But if we use that ratio in terms of communication, it gives us something to latch onto. So if when you are presenting, you spend 80% of your time looking at the camera, and give yourself, a little bit of time, 20%, to actually remember to come down to get the reactions of the people and the screen. And a second practical tip to help get in that zone, if looking at the camera is not your natural position to be, draw a smiley face on a post-it note and stick it up round, not actually on the camera, of course, but stick it up next to the camera so that it just draws your attention back up. And if I can pinch a tip from another workshop and someone else's suggestion, they cut out a small picture of someone that quite appealed to them from the world of media and the movies and put that up by the camera instead. So every time they looked up, it gave them a good reason to look up and a great big smile. And they told me it really did help. So looking at the camera and spending 80% of your time communicating with your audience. Couple of things to avoid, if I may, just to put in some danger points when we're doing this sort of communication. One I call the nonagenarian in the Nissan Micra at the traffic lights effect. So this is when you first come on screen, when you first make that appearance to people, what do they actually see? I'm sure many of you had this experience. You're trundling along, you're driving to the supermarket, and you stop at the traffic lights and you look over the carriageway the other side, on the other side of the road, because all the traffic stops, and you look at it, for some reason it's often a little Nissan Micra, and you look through the windscreen, but what you actually see is nothing. And you wonder for a moment if anyone is actually driving that vehicle. And then slowly but surely, and it's often this hat as well, slowly but surely a hat appears above the steering wheel. Then you see the eyes and you realize, actually, yes, someone is driving that car, and it's not a totally empty vehicle. A bit of fun, but a key point. How often have you appeared on a serious Zoom call, a business-related call, and someone's come on and hasn't yet adjusted their camera, hasn't yet adjusted the settings? And what you see, and I'm not going to tip my head too forwards, otherwise I'd do the same. You see that bald patch appearing on screen. Now, people take on first impressions, and first impressions stay with them forever. So if the first impression is my bald patch appearing on screen, that is how you're going to remember me for the rest of the meeting, and probably forever. And I'll add a rider to that. I'm talking about emerging and the head appearing just occasionally. And this was one of the TV news people way back at the beginning of lockdown. I think he must have had the camera deep in the corner of his laptop. I won't do precisely what he did, otherwise you will never, ever think of me in the same light again. But he got so close to the camera that you actually saw a few grey nostril hairs poking out of his nose. Now, you've probably cringed at that point and reached for your coffee to dispel that image. But the point is absolutely valid. When you first appear on screen, what's the first impression that you make with people, and what can you do to ensure that you don't make a mess of that? The first impression you make is the one that lasts, and what you want is to be the person that's remembered on screen for being professional, looking professional, and engaging professionally with people via the camera. So that's tip number one. Remember where the camera is. Remember that your audience is purely the camera. That is where your audience is. Let's move on to another practical and fundamental thing. You are the first thing that appears on screen when you're communicating virtually. What's the first thing to enter the room? Now I'm going to run another poll about when you are about to start a Zoom meeting. So when you start your Zoom meeting, do you just switch it on and start? Do you perhaps have a glass of water to hand and do what we all do for meetings? You know, a quick cough, a quick sputter, even though it's absolutely terrible for the voice. Do you do that before you appear on screen? Because just to go to the point that we are on screen, we are in the theater. This is where we are when we appear on screen. We are in a performance. So just while those answers are coming in, a few more are coming in, you're thinking about that. Do you just switch everything on and start? Do you have that glass of water to hand and a bit of a splutter and a cough? Or do you spend at least 10 minutes on voice warm-up exercises beforehand? So just trickling in, just a few more coming in. We've got enough now to give us a decent poll. So let me end the poll and give you the results. So we've got a mixture here, and I admire you for the mixture. So some have put their hand up and said, "Yep, I just switch everything on and start." Others have said, "Yeah, I have the glass of water to," and that's the most popular answer. I have a glass of water to hand, a bit of a cough and a bit of splutter. And some, and I'm wondering if it's the same people actually who are thinking ahead on this, are spending at least 10 minutes warming up the voice up exercises with exercises beforehand. Why is this so important? What is it? What is it about the voice that's so important for these types of presentations? Let's go back to your professional lives for a moment. Pre-COVID, you're in the room holding meetings with people. That's what you do. You're professionals at doing it. And when you meet people in the room, when you open that door, extended that hand for a handshake. Can anyone remember handshakes? Will we ever do handshakes again? But you open the door, you extended the hand for a handshake, and you put on your game face, didn't you? That's what you did. So agenda, check. Coffee on the go, check. Everything nice and neat and tidy, check. Smile, check. You know how to do this from meeting in the room. It's totally automatic for you. That's what you do. But now you're on screen. What is your default face when you first appear on screen? So here's the scenario. It's that presentation. It's the chance to get that contract. It's a chance to get that bit of business. It's an early morning call. Previously, you would have got up, maybe chatted around the family, grunted to the dog, the cat, had your coffee, traveled in to wherever you're working from, your office, someone else's office, had those conversations around the water cooler, had coffee conversations, had a banter, and then gone into a meeting. What you would have done is got ready for the meeting. You would have warmed your voice up. You'd have been ready for the session. You'd have put on your game face when they entered the room. What's the scenario now? It's an 8 o'clock presentation. Yeah, you might have grunted to the dog, the cat, and your partner if they're lucky, but you might not have said a word to anybody for ages. And in fact, the face that you might present when you first appear on screen is not the 10 o'clock in the morning, I traveled in, I'm bubbly, I'm ready, I'm game face and ready. But instead, it's the 6:30 in the morning. I've not had my cup of coffee face yet. Is your first face on screen the 6:30 in the morning? I've not had my cup of coffee face yet. Why is it so important? Yeah, the obvious, we want to have a game face when we present. But let me touch on smiling for a moment. Why is it about smiling that actually helps with the presentation, that helps with the delivery? Two fundamental things. Firstly, smiling is an evolutionary trait of ours. When you smile at someone in today's world, it's part of a friendly greeting. If we track that back to the days in the cave, thousands of years ago, when you smiled at someone, you actually sent a message that said, you're not part of my world, you're not part of my family, you're not part of my team, but we're going to have a friendly conversation. I'm not going to slaughter you because you've appeared on my territory. In evolutionary terms, a smile is that fundamental. But bring that to today. Now, of course, you're not going to slaughter them when they enter in the room. You're going to welcome them as mature, responsible adults in order to win the business. But there's also another reason why smiling is so important. If any of you, like me, are a mad amateur choral singer, just love singing. I mean, for me, it's traditional choral societies. For you, it might be gospel, it might just be singing in the church choir, it might be just singing in the shower. If you're a mad amateur singer, just chuck yes in the chat. I'd love to know if we could start the Branduin choral society right now. If you're a singer, chuck yes in the chat box. But a lesson, a message from the world of singing and performing. When a choir director says to its choir, I want you to smile at the audience, yes, they want a fundamental, smiley, friendly choir for the audience to see. But that director also knows that when you smile, it changes the airflow over your palate, over your soft palate. And it helps change the timbre of your voice from the 6:30, I'm now my first cup of coffee yet voice, into a warmer, smiley, friendly voice. And the human ear is sensitive enough to pick up those changes. So when I'm saying to you, smile for the camera, It's not just a bit of cheesy wedding photo stuff. It's actually a fundamental thing that helps your voice be slightly richer and slightly warmer. Because as we've already established, the picture of you is the first thing that's seen on screen, but the first thing that enters the room is your voice. Why can't you do something to make it warmer and richer? An exercise for you when this is finished. Just go quietly in a corner somewhere, get your camera or your tablet or whatever you use to record, and deliberately do the extremes. Firstly, imagine it's 6:30 in the morning. I haven't had my coffee yet voice, and just read a short paragraph or something to yourself. Stop that recording. Now record again. Put on your biggest, beamiest, happiest smile. You may feel a bit daft, but nobody will be watching you at that point. It's just you and your camera. And record the same paragraph with a great big smile on. Then stop, obviously, and listen to both recordings, not through your ears, because we all hate the sound of our own voice when it's played back on a recording. But listen through the ears of your contact, of your client, of the panel that's assessing your business and could award you the contract. Which voice would they prefer to hear? And I can guarantee the answer. The answer will be the warmer, the richer, the smiley voice. So let's just focus on voice for a couple of seconds, just to do some exercises. And I'll invite you to do them with me. Now, I can't see you or hear you, and I'm hoping that no one else can see you or hear you. But let's do some exercises together just to get it, to get our voice warmed up to the point where we're beginning to respond. First of all, we're going to do some noises together. And I can imagine your faces now. You're thinking, Jez, you're nuts. And I'm not doing this. And I'm certainly not doing it if anyone can see me. My promise to you with any exercise is I do them first to be your embarrassment sponge and soak all the embarrassment out of the room so that you can do them with me with a bit of a laugh and a giggle, because there's always a serious intent behind them. So first of all, we're going to just go, ooh. So with me, if you can, after 3, 1, 2, 3. Even by doing that, you just stretched your voice out a fraction. Here's another one. And this may sound crazy, but it works. Do a yawn. I probably just made you yawn as well. Even yawning helps to stretch out your voice. We could spend the next 3 hours working on voice exercises to help change you from 6:30 in the morning, I haven't had my cup of coffee yet voice, into something richer, warmer, more interesting for your audience to listen to give you that touch of professionalism, to make you stand out a bit from the crowd who are also presenting on that day. And a last thought to add to this whole flavor. What could your voice represent to you? What's a good image for your voice? Is anyone of my vintage and can remember the old days of valve radios? If you are someone who can remember a valve radio, something that would have appeared a bit like this. If you can remember a valve radio, just put yes in the chat box. I'd love to know if we could have a conversation about valve radios. The reason I mention valve radios is it's part of my upbringing. I grew up in the back end of a council estate in Dartford in the 1950s and 60s. The only entertainment in our house was one of the old valve radios. And if my dad wanted to listen to the Navy Lark or the Clitheroe Kid at 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, which was the peak of entertainment in those days, he had to turn the radio on at 5 to 2. Because when you turn on a valve radio, at first it's just grey and dull. It's the radio equivalent to the 6:30 in the morning. I haven't had my coffee voice yet. But over a few minutes, these grey, dull tubes turn into a beautiful, rich golden color. And it emerges into something glorious to look at as the golden colors emerge and the tubes enable the radio to work. So at 5 to 2, when you turn it on and you turned on to the home program or the light program, all you got out of it was a crackle and a crazy noise. But as it warmed up, it was then able to deliver what you expect from a radio, which is the warm, rich tones. So an image to finish with on this section is to ask you to think of your voice as an antique but beautiful valve radio. And what you need to do is to give it the chance to warm up so that when you are on stage, when you are ready to perform, your voice is going to support you and you're going to be able to deliver to your perfection of professionalism, and it's not going to let you down. So 2 key points so far. Audience is where your camera is on your screen, the Gorgon eye on top of that looking glass of a laptop. That is where your audience is. But when you appear on screen, whilst the first thing is they see is you, the first thing to enter the room is your voice. Warm it up and be prepared. And let's go to a final poll for today. Let's see what you do before you actually get there. So before meeting your contacts in the room, do you just switch it on and connect the camera? Do you wake up Zoom and check the camera before going on, just to make sure that you look okay? Or before you actually go onto the meeting and switching that camera on, do you have a really good tidy up? Put the hoover around, check everything that might be visible in the background. What do you do when you go on to meetings? And we'll just let the answers come in as people find their answers find their buttons on the screen, which is always the important thing. And we're getting some nice responses in now. Just the last couple tricking in. We've got enough to give us a poll. So let's show it. So, and I'm going to congratulate you. I'm going to congratulate you already. So I'll end the poll and share the results. So yeah, just switch on. Yep, perfectly logical thing to do. Second, wake up and zoom and see what's going on there and check that you look okay. But the majority, and I'm going to praise you to the heavens for this, because this is not a usual answer. Before the majority of people switch on the camera, have a good tidy up, and check that everything in the background might be visible. Why is that so important? I'll give bonus points to anyone who recognizes the background to this picture. So if you're into your TV comedy programs, and probably ones that are a few years old, I'll give you bonus points if you can chuck in the chat if you know where this room is. If you know where this room is on screen, Only Fools and Horses. Nim, you win the prize. If I had one, I'll give it to you right now. This is Grandad's flat in Only Fools and Horses. Why do I put that up? So let's go back to the fundamentals again. We've established that you're consummate professionals and you prepare thoroughly for client meetings. Your dress style is appropriate to the meeting. Okay, on Zoom, on Teams, you only have to dress from the top up, but still your dress style is appropriate and the circumstances are right. I used to be a bank manager. So from in the last days of my old-fashioned bank manager days, and I was a proper old-fashioned bank manager, the one that actually lent you money on the say-so over the desk, I used to look after high net worth personal clients. Now, having grown up on a council estate in the back end of Dartford, to get to the point where I was taking potential clients to Coutts Bank in the Strand was, shall we say, a bit of a leap. And I'll always remember taking people into those meeting rooms. In Coutts the Strand, you go into what you think is the reception, but it's just a security desk. And in my days, you then went up escalator onto the first floor. That was the reception, the size of a football pitch with koi carp in a pond. And then you got taken to the meeting rooms, Now, I've never been in a 7-star hotel. I probably never will. But I can imagine those rooms represented what a 7-star hotel would look like. And the staff in those days, the coot staff dressed in Victorian frock coats. So, one up from suits, it was frock coats. Why? Because they wanted to match the image and the background that they knew was appropriate to the clients that they were dealing with. Now, I'm not in any way accusing anyone here of having a room like Granddad's flat. But let's put it in practical terms again. How many times have you been on a Zoom call and someone's left a bicycle propped up against the wall behind you? Or it's a family house and the weekend's washing is still piled up on the floor. If it's your team and your friends and your contacts, of course, in those circumstances, it's all part of life. But come back to that point about being on screen and being absolutely fundamentally professional, and the way that that first image appears is absolutely vital. So my plea with you is to do as so many have said they do: before you wake it up, before you go onto screen with your client, with your contact, or with your prospect, just check the background. And again, practical tips: wake it up to yourself beforehand, wake up Zoom, wake up Teams, and just to see what they're seeing. But then also it's worth, I would suggest, just actually standing up from your desk and going around the other side of the laptop or against the wall, if it's up against the wall, and just take in the bigger view. What are people going to see before they meet you? How professional can you make it look on that very first time that they see you? So let's wrap up this session with a covering of a repeat of what we've done so far. And then I'm going to touch on a few practical points to help you get to grips with being prepared yourself for any presentation. So the bulk of this session today has been about delivering virtually. It's that moment when you're going to appear on screen to the ones who are going to make a decision on whether you are going to get that contract or not. Anything you can do to look and sound professional is going to help. So major tip number one: look at the camera, not the screen. That is where your audience is. 100% of the time, that is where your audience is. Make an effort to smile on screen. You will sound warmer. You will sound with a richer voice. You will sound more engaging. And the ears of the people you're listening to are sensitive enough to pick that up. And then thirdly, remember to prepare your meeting room before you actually go onto screen with people. And that can extend, we were talking about piles of washing and bicycles, even things to do with nostalgia and family. I've got a little friend here. This is just for the exercise at the moment, but I've got a little friend here who's probably about the friendliest, loveliest, most gorgeous orangutan you will ever meet. And he has rocked my children to sleep from 30 years ago. And I'm sure if you're not going at this moment, then I'll have a word with you afterwards. But should he be appearing on the mantelpiece behind me when I'm running a session for a professional client, then I'm sorry, but he's got to say goodbye. So third tip: prepare your background and the room as professionally as you would for any presentation where you're meeting with professional people. Now let's round up with a couple of practical, again, fundamental reasons why the nerves get to us beforehand. So let me go back to that very first question that I asked when we appeared on screen earlier this morning, which was, it's the biggest presentation of your life. It's an absolutely amazing presentation you're going to deliver. How do you feel? Now, I'll make a guess that at that moment, if you project yourself ahead to that moment, the chances are the hands are going to be sweaty. The last thing you want to do, fortunately, you can't shake anyone's hand at the moment, but the last thing you want to do is shake anyone's hand at that very moment. The breathing is going to be a bit nervous. You're going to be feeling quite anxious because this is a big moment. Why does that happen? And what can you do to actually reduce the risk of it being uncomfortable for you? And a couple of practical things to help you get in the right zone for presenting. So firstly, why does it happen? You know, saber-toothed tigers have got a lot to answer for the nerves that we suffer. If we go back to the image of you and me as one of our ancestors thousands of years ago in a nice little comfy cave somewhere with a nice little fire in the corner and a cup of tea bubbling on the side. It was all nice and safe and comfortable, just as we are when we're in our own homes today. It's safe and it's comfortable and we're relaxed and we're okay. But back then, you foolishly decided to step outside of your cave home and stepped outside onto the savannah, onto the plateau. You are then instantly potential lunch for a passing saber-toothed tiger. Every instinct in your body, every bit of your brain, deep in your amygdala, many thousands of years ago, kicked the fight and flight mechanism into action immediately. The hands went sweaty. The food started moving around the wrong places in your body. The temperature went up. The breathing started to go really rapid, because what your brain was telling you at that point is get out of here now, otherwise you are going to die. That's the origin of our fight and flight mechanism. Now, if we move a nice couple of 100,000 years forward to today, when we step in front of the screen, in order to deliver our presentation, we're not about to die. Maybe a quiet little stage death as the joke that we carefully prepared and rehearsed goes absolutely flat and the tumbleweed just goes past in front of us. But we're not actually at risk of death. But your brain is still sending the same messages. That fight and flight mechanism is still fundamentally part of your core being, and it is still sending the same reactions to you. So it's perfectly natural, in fact, to be nervous, and we almost want to be, don't we? The day when we just approach a presentation, yeah, I can do it, is the day we get so boring that no one will ever listen to us again. We want a bit of those nerves, but we want to be able to manage them. So if we know that they're happening, what can we do to stop? Let's finish that this morning with a session on breathing exercises. And again, I make the promise that I will do everything first so that you can be suave, sophisticated and sanguine human beings and join with me with a smile, because you know that I've taken the embarrassment out of the room. But let's focus on a simple breathing exercise that can really help you get ready, relaxed, and prepared to present. When the nerves strike, we get this panicky breathing here. It's like you've just run up the top of the stairs, and before you know where you are, it's this sort of breathing that's happening, and you just know, oh, I've just got to get through this. I just need to be able to get through it. And the risk is, and I'm exaggerating for the point, but the risk is that when we're presenting, we get to this point, and you've probably seen people do this, where actually the breathing is taking over the presenter, and you're just trying to get through it. The message that you're sending to your audience is, I'm a nervous presenter. And your audience are going to respond to that. Even the hardened assessors making their decision on that tender, on that pitch, they're going to react to your nervousness and going to feel slightly uncomfortable because you are nervous. So let's do together some breathing exercise that will really help you get your breathing under control. What we're going to do, and I will do it first, is we're going to deliberately breathe deeply. And what I'm going to ask you to do is put your hand on your stomach, about where your belt buckle would be if you're wearing jeans or trousers. What we're going to do together is we're going to breathe in deeply, and we're going to take the breath right the way down our body to where our hand is and try and push the hand out. So that hand on your belt buckle, we're going to try and push it out as far as we possibly can. So if you're with me, if you're able to stand up, even better, because then we're going to do it together. But I'm going to ask you to put your hand where your belt buckle is on where your trousers would be if you're wearing jeans, and we're going to take a deep breath together. So just for the exercise, put your hand where your belt buckle will be. I will do it once to demo, and we'll go 1, 2, 3, breathe in and push the hand out and breathe out again and let it come back in again. Now, post lockdown, my stomach is probably not the one you want to see, but I'm sure we can all identify with that. So together, we're going to breathe in deeply to where that hand is and push that hand out and breathe out again. So after 3, 1, 2, 3, breathe in and breathe out again. And together, 1, 2, 3, breathe in and breathe out again. And last session, 1, 2, 3, breathe in and breathe out again. How do you feel at this precise moment? If you were doing those exercises with me, how do you feel? Put a note in the chat box about how you feel after doing a simple fundamental breathing exercise such as that. And what I can promise you is that calm. Thank you, Karen. Yes, it's made you feel calm, hasn't it? So if doing a simple breathing exercise like this can help you feel calm before you start, think of the effect not just on yourself, but more importantly, because everything we do when we're presenting is about our audience. So think of the effect on your audience. Great, thank you, Baba, great. If you can do something that makes you feel calm and makes you feel great and more energized, think of the effect you're going to have on your audience, the people who are assessing you for that pitch, for that presentation, for that contract, and how they're going to remember you just a fraction above the others who are delivering a presentation as well that day. Let's wrap up. And if you have any questions that are bubbling for you, put them in the chat box now as we're just wrapping up, and I'll answer them in the next couple of minutes, as many as I can. So any questions on delivering, on presenting, even if it's outside what we're talking about now, chuck them in the chat box and I'll do my best to answer them. But let's wrap up, and I'll give you an illustration of where I've had to put these into practice as well. So we've covered some real fundamental speak performance techniques today about delivering virtually, remembering where our audiences were at all times when we were presenting virtually. Your audience is that tiny little camera. That is where your audience is. We've remembered that when we're going to deliver, our voice is the first thing that enters the room. So we've warmed it up, and we remembered that when we're seeing people around us, they are seeing what's around us, and that the impression we create, that first impression, is so important. And we've done one fundamental exercise, breathing, to help build our relaxation, our calm, and our confidence so that we are ready to present. And if I may, I'll just give you one personal story that for me sums up where I've had to put in practice everything that I work on today. 40 years of commercial life, ex-bank manager, business development manager in 3 different organizations, various redundancies. I've been there, I bought the t-shirt. I deliver for the Leith Hill Musical Festival. I stand on stage to 600 people and do the emceeing for the day, something I've grown up with over the years. But the image you've got behind me now is perhaps the pinnacle for me. Amateur choral singing is my passion. It relaxes me, it's fun, it really helps with the voice. And we, within Dorking Choral Society, we commissioned a work about 12 years ago called Zimbe, which is a brilliant community piece. And it got its 10th anniversary concert in the Carnegie Hall in New York, here, 2 years ago. And we got invited. Would we like to take part in that gig? So some of us went over. And I remember, you know that moment where you get a call and it's a moment that sticks with you forever? It was the composer, Alexander Lestrange, who I know quite well. And he phoned me up on the train in October and said, Jez, you know that bass solo on page 58? Yes. They want me to get professional soloists over here, but you know it. I know you can do it. I've heard you perform it. Would you like to do that bass solo in the gig in Carnegie Hall in May? Hang on, you're asking me, do I want to do an a cappella solo? No music around me, just voice on stage at the Carnegie Hall. So I did. Everything that we have talked about today in terms of preparation, I had to put in practice. So if you're thinking, Jez just read this in a book and is telling me about it, no, I do it, I practice it. And what I'm covering for you today is stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis. So let's wrap up the session with questions, any questions that have come in that I can answer in any shape or form for you. So let's have a look and see what we've got in terms of questions. Gufa, what is the best way to increase confidence for being camera ready? We've covered some practical suggestions in terms of your performance, but the question I would ask you is what preparation do you do to build up that confidence in terms of your content so that you are absolutely ready and know you have nailed it? I would ask the question, how much preparation do you do? How much rehearsal do you do for any presentation or any event that you're coming up to? Again, I'll pinch a practical example from my background. Many years ago, I used to do public speaking competitions. And for that, it was rehearsing a speech, and it was going in front of judges and lights going on and off, and the timing had to be perfect, akin to going forward for a panel for a bit of business. But the maxim we worked to in the training that I did for those days was that for every minute of your presentation, you allowed a week's worth of preparation. So remember, we're going to performance perfection here. We're going to competition standards, but a 7-minute competition speech was about 2 months worth of work and rehearsal, both in terms of the writing and the content and the delivery, so that when it came to present it, all of us would be absolutely word perfect. We knew it inside out so well that you knew the timings inside out, and you could play with it as you went because you knew you were coming back to where the timings were going to be. So the question I would ask you in terms of how do I increase my confidence of being camera ready is not only the techniques we can use for performance, such as we covered today, but also the preparation and the practice that you deliver with. And here's a last tip in that vein. When you've got your presentation together, use your property, your house, your flat as a place to mark actions of the presentation. So let's say you've got a presentation that's in 4 sections, and you want to know that you're going to deliver each section. Use sections of the house as you walk around to present. So by the front door for section 1, in room 1 for section 2, in the kitchen for section 3, in the hallway for section 4, and just get into a routine of delivering the presentation in different parts of where you live. And then when it comes to that presentation, when you're live, your brain will take you to where you are. So instead of that brain freeze moment, you will have the chance to remember where you are and remember what section you were in and what timing you were on. And then a last thought to add to that about increasing confidence. Do you want to be the voice of monotony that you probably heard in so many presentations? Fortunately, gone are the days when someone can deliver a 45-minute presentation sitting in a chair with a few pictures on a screen. If you want to deliver today, you need to entertain the audience. So another question for you, how do you match the voice that you're using to the message that you want your audience to hear? So is it something really exciting? Is it the oh, I've just had ice cream for tea voice from a 5-year-old? Or is it actually something really important you're delivering and a sound message that has got to be got across with a voice of authority? Or have you just touched on something really personal where you want to reach the hearts of your audience for what you're saying? And then as you reach the conclusion, how do you finish it off in a way that sounds as though this really has finished? All these are fundamental techniques that can be put in place to increase your confidence, to increase the professionalism of your delivery, and to ensure that the audience you are delivering to are going to see and hear and experience as professional a presentation as you can possibly muster. Nowza, if I may, I will conclude here. If you want to ask any further questions outside of this, just look up Jez Ray, Gesray. I'm the only one in the world, so you'll find me on LinkedIn, you'll find me on social media. Just Google Jez Ray, and whichever your preferred platform is, get in touch. I'd be delighted to connect with you on LinkedIn and take any other conversations on presenting as a subsequent to this presentation. My thanks to you for being part of today. My hope, my belief is that you will take away the tips that we've covered and use them. My plea to you is not to just say, I was on this session, yeah, put it to one side, get back to what's normally on the desk. Take these suggestions and put them into practice this afternoon, tomorrow, the rest of the week, so they become part of your toolkit and help you present professionally and present to win. Thank you.
Thank you, Jez. Much appreciated. Wonderful as usual. And I've learned a lot again, today. I keep watching your presentations and hope I can be able to put that into some sort of practice as well. So it's a good opportunity for us, again, to look at what this program is about. So can I request Lisa to play the second part of the video, which will then be followed by a few slides I have about one-to-one sessions and what more we have in store for you. Many thanks, Jez, and see you soon again. Many thanks.
Thank you.
The tendering process at London Borough of Hounslow. The first stage to tendering is to register your interest in an opportunity at londontenders.org. This will give you access to the documents relating to the contract. In these documents, you should find as a minimum the invitation to tender. These set out how the tender will be run. The selection questionnaire. This asks for information about you, covering basic information, criminal offences, financial standing, insurance and experience. The specification, sometimes known as the employer's requirements. This is a vital document for bidders as it shows the background to the requirement and what we want to achieve from the contract. The award criteria, sometimes known as the contractor's proposal. These are the questions we require you to answer. The weighting of each question is shown here. The terms and conditions. The draft contract will be made available to you so you can check the fine print. Make sure you have read and understood these documents before bidding. You can request clarification on any element of the tender. The next stage is to complete your response. Ensure your answers cover all the points required. Where possible, link your answer back to the specification and any other relevant documents provided. Once your bid has been submitted, it is evaluated in line with the instructions in the tender. This usually involves individual evaluators scoring your response before it is moderated as a group for the outcome. Bids are only evaluated against the criteria set, not against other bids. As soon as possible after evaluation is completed, you will be notified of the outcome. If you have not been successful, you can request a debrief to obtain feedback on your bid to put you in a better position next time. If you would like more information on the processes followed, please go to the procurement page at hounslow.gov.uk or send a question to the procurement team on procurement@hounslow.gov.uk.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm just going to start to share my screen and get my video on as well. Okay. Right. Just two more slides and that's it. So we've come to the end of the Innovate and Grow, the first phase. Thank you all for attending our workshops. Thank you again, Jez, for a wonderful session today. You have access to the recording, so I would recommend, and I'll do so myself, is to view the recording again before your next big session. When you are about to present, when you're about to present to win, or even do a session yourself like today. So just to recap, our Fit to Bid program, what we're going to focus on now in July is we've been granted a small extension. We are pleased to know that. Hope you will be too as well. But this is basically, this basically helps us to deliver something we couldn't deliver in the intensive May to June period. So we're going to be delivering 40 one-to-one tender advice in a session through our advisors. And essentially, the process to follow is we've done the workshops, we've done the webinars, the diagnostic. Okay, so please expect an email since you've all joined up and registered. You'll receive an email to fill in a very simple Fit to Bid questionnaire. It'll only take you 5 minutes. It's very confidential. The report is then generated, and you get a report back sent to you, personal report. Some of you have on the session here have already done it, but this will be going out to everybody again. No harm if you do it again. One-on-one session will focus on your gaps, overcome your challenges, and go back to where we started from, help you to re-engage with a procurement as well. So this is going to come your way hopefully tomorrow. And along with that will be a feedback form on the entire program. And Hounslow Council asked us to fill that in, asked you to fill it in. It'll take you a couple of minutes. It's anonymous, it's totally confidential, and feel free to fill that in as well. So expect 2 emails. One is with the survey, one's with the Fit to Bid questionnaire. So on that basis, I'd like to say a great many thanks to Jez again. If you've got any questions, feel free to send them to me or to him. And I look forward to hearing from you again and to helping you achieve your objectives and win lots more tenders. Thank you very much. See you soon. Thank you. And thank you, Lisa, for hosting again. Thank you.